Hello there, welcome to Craft with Fee. Well, we're up to week 7 of the 12 weeks of Christmas stitch along using the gorgeous Maple Farm Tilda fabrics on the Tilda Lovers group on Facebook. You can, of course, just follow along here on YouTube, but if you want to join in all the fun, come along to Facebook and join our group, the Tilda Lovers Club. Let's go and have a look. Okay, so this week we're doing a project which is quite simple. I know I say that a lot, but this one is very, very simple. And the reason for that is because I'm going to be giving you some homework through the week, this week, towards next week's project, because it's probably not going to be a tiny project that you could do in a week easily. And I don't want to put you under any pressure, so I'm going to give you some homework. And that'll be about Tuesday or Wednesday. I'll put that into the group and you can get a head start on the following week's project. But anyway, on to this project. It's a gorgeous little purse, a little pouch. Now you can make it to fit your mobile phone, entirely up to you. This will fit an iPhone, this measurement, without a casing. Mine has a casing on it and it's a little bit tight. But you can extend it longer if you wish. You can fold it differently. But this is just giving you the overall idea of the body of the purse. So it's fully lined. It's very, very simple. You could just throw it in the washing machine if you wanted to, if you get it a bit grubby. But the idea is that it's for use. It's not to be pretty, it's to be actually used. So I've popped some little Suffolk puffs on the front there. I'm going to show you how to make those. To be honest, I thought that the fabric was a little bit busy to have the pattern fabric on the outside and then give it some decoration. So I think this looks much more classic, but you can do it however you wish. And of course, as I said, then you open it up and you see the beautiful Maple Farm. Okay, let's get started. So you'll need to download the template sheet. On that you'll have some circles. There are a large circle and a small circle. You need to cut 2 scraps of fabric in the large circles and 1 in the small. And I've already gone ahead and made 2 more of the Suffolk puffs off camera, and we will make this one here together when the time comes. You'll also need a hair elastic. These are the sort that I tend to buy for bag making and purse making. They're the ones without the metal piece on them because they're much easier to sew with. I like to buy them in all different tones so that they match my fabrics, and hopefully that one matches this one because I'm using the purples again. And on that pattern sheet you will also find this little curve. This is just your template for you to get this beautiful curve here. And it will be very helpful, so you could download that. Now you need to cut 3 pieces of fabric, 1 from your outer, 1 from your inner, and 1 piece of fusible wadding. In my case I'm using Parlan. Now the measurements for this, it's 4.5 inches wide by 13.5 inches in length. Now that is 3 times the width. That's what I've done it, so that's why it's the 13.5. So what you'll need to do is to make a sandwich to begin with, and the sandwich is going to be the outer piece, which has got the wadding fused onto it, and then your inner piece, and you can lay them so that the right sides are facing. And so you need that nice raw edges here met together, and this is where we're going to be doing our little template here. So we just pop the template on like that. And then you can just use a pencil or anything you wish just to draw around that template. There you go, I've drawn all over it, but that's okay. I'm just going to reach and find a pair of scissors, and then I'm going to cut through all 3 layers. Now you can pin it beforehand if you're concerned that it's going to move and that you're not going to be able to do it neatly. Couldn't have chosen a worse pair of scissors. But that's okay, it just needs to be pretty rough. As I said, this project really is suitable for beginners. It's a great little project for you to get finished in no time at all. Okay, so we've got our little curve. So what we're going to do now is we're going to fold it in half, that way. And we're going to give it a really good press up here with your fingers, with a bit of friction, because that'll cause a little bit of heat. Now if you want to go to the ironing board and do this, you can, but it's quite sufficient to do it with your fingers, and it'll give you that lovely crease. Now you can take away your lining for a moment and you can look at the crease there. Now this is where we're going to be putting our elastic. So you need about half of the hair elastic in length, and you need to lay that against the body of the outer. So we're going to do that there like so. Now I'm just going to use I might make mine a bit shorter actually. I'm going to use a pin to hold it in place there. Now we don't want to hold it in place with the pin up near this seam because we're going to be sewing over this. We want to be able to have that sew free zone there. And I probably got mine on the wrong angle. So if your pin's down low enough, you're going to be able to sew through this without a problem. Okay, so there you go. You can see that that's at the halfway point, and I can sew around here without any interruption at all. So pop your lining back down, and then you can go ahead and clip this all the way around. And so what I want you to do is I want you to stitch all the way around your piece of fabric, except for down the bottom here. You can do it on the right or the left side. It's entirely up to you. I've just noticed that mine's a little bit short on one end here. I'll trim that up in a moment. But you just need to leave an opening. So about 1.5 inches to 2 inches down on this side down in here. It needs to be in the lower 4.5 inch end of your little purse. So we'll stitch all the way around here, back round up to where the opening will start. So if we go and do that, and then we'll come back. Okay, there we go. So you can see that this part here is poking out. Now you can just go ahead now and snip that off. And that's your waist piece. Now you can reach inside here and remove that pin. Before we go any further, we're not going to turn it around to the right side yet. We're just going to get rid of that pin. There we go. Right. So now we're going to clip the corners on these bottom corners, the right angles. So we'll just give them a little clip across, and the easiest way is to pop your thumb over the corner of the stitching so you don't cut it, and then just snip a little bit away from where your thumb is. And then we're going to go back up to this curve, and we're going to start around the corner from the curve, and we're just going to clip those curves there. So all the way around, and that's what helps the fabric to sit beautifully. So do them fairly close together. I don't know if you can see how close I'm going here, but we just want the fabric to be able to pull away from itself so that you get that nice curve. So all of these little tips and tricks are the things that make your finished item look finished and look really professional. If we were just to turn this without clipping it, we'd end up with a puckered mess. And no matter how much we ironed it, we still wouldn't get the fabric to lay properly. It just doesn't happen. Okay, so now we can take it and we can turn it to the right side. And I'm going to get my trusty paintbrush because we want to get those corners beautifully poked out so that they're on right angles. Now there are lots of other different ways that you could make this pouch, which would be more difficult, but as I said, I really wanted to make this a beginner's project, and I wanted to make it quick and easy for those of you that have a bit more experience, so that, as I said, you can get some homework done through the week for our next project. But this, to me, was the simplest way to do it for people that haven't never done too much sewing. Okay, now as always, there's always little bits of cotton that come through your seams. Just pull them out. Give it a bit of a tidy up as you go. And we're just going to use the end of my paintbrush just to get that curve happening there. Give it nice and let that fabric lay properly the way it should. And then we'll poke it out this other side here. And it's going to be the iron that's going to do all the work, because as you know, I'm a great believer in ironing as we go to get those beautiful, neat finishes. Okay, so we'll just poke these little corners out here. Give them a nice poke. And the reason why I'm using a paintbrush is because it's nice and smooth and rounded. You don't want to use anything pointy. If you use something pointy, you're going to damage the fabric in the corners and most probably poke it through the corners, and then that damage can't be repaired. So it's worth just getting some cheap paintbrushes and just using the ends, because the ends are just perfect for poking. You see, you get that beautiful corner. Okay, so we're going to take this over to the ironing board and we're going to give it a really good press. Now, while you're there, this opening, we want you to press it nice and neatly closed. And then I'm going to apply some Roxanne's to mine, and I'll show you how to do that in a moment. Okay, it's all ironed now, and you can see here that this is where my opening is. So I'm going to use some Roxanne's Glue Basted. I have a little dip and dab bottle. These are absolutely wonderful, A, because they're tiny, but the little dabber on the end is wonderful. Now, if you haven't got one of these, you can go to kittyrosecottage.com. They have them there. That's where I get mine from. So we're just going to open up this little seam and we're going to pop the Roxanne's all the way along the seam. Now, this is water soluble, so you don't need to worry about it being in there forever and damaging your fabric. If you're going to wash this, which you probably will if you're going to be using it in your handbag, you don't have to worry, because the first time you wash it, it's going to dissolve. Okay, so I've closed it, and you can see it's closed with the Roxanne's Glue Basted, and it looks like it's been sewn. Now, the reason I do that is because no matter how careful you are, those openings often open themselves back up when you're sewing. I don't know why it is, but they do. So I just tend to use it for that purpose, and then I don't have to worry about it popping open. I don't have to worry about it extra pinning. I can just sew to my heart's content. Okay, so what we're going to do is to turn this up. So if you pop it onto your measuring board, or your cutting board, or onto a measuring ruler, we're going to fold this bottom part here up. I hope I've got it in camera. This bottom part here up by 5 inches. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, which means we're going to fold it up to the 5-inch mark. So that's been folded up 5 inches. Okay. And then how this is going to look is that is then going to go down the front like so. Now, if you need to make it longer and you want to make this shorter, whatever, but that's what I've done with mine. I've done the 5-inch mark, but you could do whatever suits you. So then we're going to take some of our trusty little Wonder Clips, and we're just going to clip both sides. And you can see how neatly they go together. It's sort of like a really nice, neat finish you're going to get. That's what I said. There are lots of other ways that you could make this, but the way that we're doing it is for beginners, and it is definitely going to give them a lovely, neat finish without having to know too much about bag making or purse making. This is just a simple sew and fold. Okay. So we just get it neat as we go to make sure, because this is going to be what everyone sees. This is going to be the finished product. And there we go. Now, I suggest when we sew this that you start right there, just on the cusp of where you've got the join. And that way it won't be seen so much. So what we're going to do is we're going to sew 1/4 of an inch all the way around, including down the bottom here where it's folded, and all the way around here and right back round to where we started. And that is going to give it the finished off look. And then all we've got left to do is to attach the button, make the Suffolk puffs, attach those, and we're done. Now, how easy was that? I've left my threads on the back side here so that you can see where I started and finished, and hopefully you can see the fact that because I've started on that join there, you can't actually see the start and finish, which is perfect because all of it obviously is shown out. Yeah, it's great. Okay, so all we've got left to do now, as I said, is to make the Suffolk puffs and to pop a button on. So that I've chosen this gorgeous little purple button because we're going with a purple theme for this one. So my little Suffolk puffs are going to go on here, like so, and we're going to show you how to make them. Now, if you are a normal maker of a Suffolk puff, or otherwise known as a yo-yo, you may already have some yo-yo makers. You can get them in a couple of sizes. There's an orange one, which is the next size up, and there's this little green one. Now, they're pretty easy to use, and the instructions are on the pack. I'm not going to preach to the converted here, but I wanted to show you how to make them without a yo-yo maker, because it's probably a skill that some of you don't know. Now, you don't get as even a nice pucker, I don't think, as you do with the yo-yo maker, but it is still nice. You can see that it's a bit finer. When you do the yo-yo maker, they seem to be further apart and they sort of sit a little bit better. But it's totally up to you whether or not you want to do it by hand. So all you need is a circle. And what you're going to do with your circle is take some thread with a knot in the end, and you're just going to turn over a tiny little bit, and you're going to run a gathering stitch all the way around your fabric. Now, don't be too fussed about how much you turn over. You know, it doesn't matter. These little Suffolk puffs look good really no matter what you do, so you'll be fine. That noise in the background is my iron. I forgot to turn it off. Okay. Now, of course, you could go and try and iron all the edges down if you want to be really fussy, but it's really not required, not necessary. You can make the circles bigger or smaller, but it's a great way of using up scraps. If you have a look on Pinterest or somewhere like that and look up the word Suffolk puff or yo-yo, and you'll see some of the beautiful projects, quilts, table runners, the handbags even, where they've just joined these together onto a background. They look amazing. So it's a great idea if you can master them to be using up your scraps, and it's something that you can just sit and do mindlessly. And especially if you've got a yo-yo maker, because you don't have to pre-cut the fabric and cut it once it's in the little maker. Okay, so we just get this back around to the start. We're nearly there. You can see why I made the other two off camera. Okay, so we're just going to put the needle back around to the front because I want to, that's where I need it. And then we're going to pull. There we go. And you'll have this little mess, like a little handbag. And so what you've got to do now is to pull out all of the bottom, all of the edges, because it'll naturally want to pull itself in, but you want to pull it back out so that you have it all puffed out. You can see there that it's all gathered beautifully. So because you're not going to see the other side of your Suffolk puff, you can just go back down through where you started so that you can tie it off to keep that beautiful gather. You can do like a little half knot just to do it nice and tight, and then you can do another one for good measure if you're worried about it coming undone, which one of mine did yesterday. So simply cut it off, and there you have it. Sweet little Suffolk puff. Adorable. So we've got the three there now. As I said, I've chosen the purple tones. They're just scraps that we had left over from some of the other projects. And so all you need to do is to stitch them down. And you can just do the same thing, pop a couple of stitches through the centre. Maybe you can pop one on each of the quarters and that'll hold it in place. I have to tell you that I actually glued these ones down. I didn't bother stitching them. I didn't want any stitches to come through here. I did do a version where I stitched them on before I sewed it together. It doesn't look as good. You can try that, but it doesn't look as good. The same with the button. The button can be a little bit tricky to put on because you've got to get your needle and thread down inside the purse, but it's worth the effort. So you just take your button and you stitch it on, find out whereabouts it wants to be. Now you need to make sure that it's a little bit lower than where your elastic is so that it's got something to pull down over to keep it closed. If you pop your button directly underneath it, it's sort of going to sit loosely and won't look as good. So I'll go off and do that and I'll come back. There you have it, my gorgeous little purse. Now you can see that I've popped some bling on there. Can you notice that? Hopefully it's showing up on the video there. So I have a Hotfix Applicator wand, which I often use to pop little diamantes and things. If you haven't seen these before, they're a Hotfix applicator. So, and you can buy all these little bits of bling that you can apply onto things. So I decided that that's what I was going to do there. Originally I was going to pop some beads in the centre, but then decided on the bling. But you can even leave them plain like I have on this first one. It's entirely up to you. So there you go. I hope that you give this week's challenge a go. It's a very simple one, as I said, something that you could even teach to children if you wanted to. It'll give them a nice quick finish, something nice and neat that they can be proud of. I'll be back through the week to give you some homework for next week's challenge. I'll see you then. Bye for now.